Sounds good. All right. So, hey, Bansi, welcome to my podcast.
Thank you. Lovely to be here.
Yeah. So maybe I can explain a bit how I met you, and yeah, why I wanted to have you on the podcast. So we met at Ängsbacka Community Retreat Center in Sweden, I guess last winter, and um, then I joined you for like a 6 or 7 week book club where we were in the morning on Sundays reading, coming together around chapters of your book called Evolving Human Consciousness. And in the afternoons, we were participating in a 3 hour workshop that you designed called The Field of Awakening. Um, yeah, and the Field of Awakening, there's many ways to potentially explain it, but basically, yeah, I invited you to the show because I've been very excited about your work and this workshop specifically. And yeah, then this spring when you were abroad, me and my friend Alona have been mentored by you from a distance to host our own field of awakenings here and to step a little bit into facilitating those spaces. Um, and yeah, it's a very interesting and beautiful experience. And yeah, that's why I wanted to have you on the show to talk more about your work and specifically around the workshop and the facilitation of these kind of spaces.
Cool. Thank you. Let's do it.
Yeah. So how would you describe the field of awakening?
Ooh. In its highest vision, it's really incubating the depth of the potential of human relating in the future. Like
Mm,
really, it's really bringing forth, it's creating a space where we can deepen into ourselves and our connection to each other and our sense of connection with everybody in the room and everyone in the world, and for that matter. But it's like it's really deepening this interconnected weaving of consciousness of who we are. Um,
mm,
and that's what I guess why I feel it's so valuable. It's really an incubator for the future, the potential of human consciousness. That's on of course, the grandiose side of things. On the very practical side of things, it's just being who we are, being very natural, being present in my body, feeling what I feel in this moment, being honest and open with others, with what I'm noticing in this moment. And so I get to show up as I am in my wholeness and be seen and accepted, and also sometimes reflected or challenged to see my blind spots as well. So you kind of have all angles of that because, we all have those unhealed parts of ourselves where we're still guarding and we're still protecting and armored in some way, and then we can help each other to discover what that's about and to heal those parts so that we don't need to remain so armored all the time.
yeah, that's a nice description. I haven't heard that one before. Or maybe it's like a synthesis of the book that you wrote, the description. Yeah, I think what I enjoy so much about it is this like almost like futuristic approach to like gathering in a playground for adult consciousness and just sort of um like every workshop that I've been to or that I've hosted has been like different. And because of this idea of following like of coming in without agenda, with like quite minimal like structure and agreements, and then sort of like the focus on like the emergent impulse um, to guide what wants to unfold between a group of people in a given moment in a given place. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes it's deceiving. Some people think, oh, there's no structure, but there really is a very strong, clear structure, but the structure is more for the context, not so much for the content.
Mm.
So it's like that we have a time frame, we have agreements, three principles and three agreements of how we're going to relate to each other, how we're going to orient to each other. But what we're going to do is a completely empty, open space for emergence to come through. And yeah, this is really the essence of the practice because if we knew mentally, consciously what we needed, uh, we would already have it, but we really have to tap into what the unconscious realms and the non-mental intelligences that we have within us. How do we listen to those intelligences and harness them and align with them and support them to be influential and to help us, to guide us in some way. And by non-mental intelligences, I mean intuition, emotion, instinct, even imagination, subtle energy, physical body sensations. These all have information for us. They've been developed over millions of years of evolution. They've been around a lot longer than the prefrontal cortex and our ability to create pro and cons lists. Those are nice too, but if we can really listen to all our faculties and make decisions that are in alignment with as many of them or all of them as possible, then we really
Mm.
become more whole and more holistic and more integrated and in a way more fulfilled because we're really honoring all parts of ourselves.
Mm. Yeah. There's like some, as I was like scrolling through your book, because the book is actually explaining the workshop and what is happening inside the workshop and sort of like the individual prerequisites to it to attain a state of coherence that gives space to follow like the most subtle emergent impulse. And in that sense, I find that the workshop, like sometimes when we come together as humans, we sort of like can play out these like larger stories than ours, like tapping into this sort of like collective, like what wants to like within the collective be witnessed or be expressed through us. Um, but I guess that is like the workshop, yeah, at its like highest level. But the reality is also that we all come with our baggage and with our tensions and with like our emotions and stories of the day and our limitations of our conditioning. So when we come together in a group, like it can also go often in these like more like sort of healing work, or like there is a need for something there and there is resource over there, and then to attain that level of coherence, like sort of like the when the spaceship really takes off, like that is like such a highly like satisfying experience that I got to taste like a few times over the like maybe 12 sessions I had thus far. um but then like yeah, most of the work is just like readying ourselves for takeoff, and that can mean that a lot of attention has to go to one person that needs it, or like a conflict in the group, or yeah. But I have one line from your book as I was scrolling through that I liked is as relational mammals by design, we humans have many relational gifts that will only come to fruition when we are a fully immersed participatory member of an organismic collective. Because I guess that's where the satisfaction for me around like, oh, we're coming together in tribe, we're coming together in group, and um, yeah, there's something like deeply satisfying around
Mm,
when we come together like that, and there is that resonant coherence within the organism.
mm. Yeah, I love group work for so many reasons, and you're pointing to a few of them because
Mm.
you can only one-on-one healing work can be nice and helpful, but there's something more full, robust, and holistic when you're in a group dynamic because everything is there. We're social creatures by design. We're not individual creatures. So when we have so much of our personal development systems in the world now focus on the individual. How do I heal myself? How do I become whole? How do I become so independent and free and enlightened, that I don't need anybody, and no matter what happens, I can maintain it. It's all about the individual doing something. But we're we're a social species. We're all going to survive or die on this planet together, and we've grown up in tribe. We've grown up interacting. We have this social nervous system that we develop with our parents from infancy all the way through childhood, and it's so subtle, this social nervous system. And when we're in group, everything shows up. And you don't have to imagine or fabricate this challenge that you had with your mom or your boss or your kid when you're talking to a therapist. In the group dynamic, somebody will represent
Mm.
that person no matter what. You know, they will be close
Yeah.
enough to that energy that you can interact with them, and that it will be really alive and active inside your system. And then it can really be looked at even with more clarity and supported, and you know, you can might be able to get an insight or get support or process something or whatever it wants to happen. So yeah,
Mm.
the group dynamics is delicious, and also the emergent quality that comes by not having this predetermined idea of what we're going to do today. Like, here's the set of exercises we're going to do. This is how most workshops are run, right? These are the exercises we're going to do today. We don't do that at all in Field of Awakening. We're listening for something that none of us thought of before, that none of us planned for. And like what's emergent,
Mm.
and this ocean, this energetic field, morphogenetic field, whatever we call it, the quantum field. We're there in this shared attention and shared intention. Whatever really needs the most attention, that serves us the most, will percolate to the top. You know, just like you're you know, running a filter, or you know, separating water and oil, or you know, you just let it sit, and it's like things
Mm.
separate, things become clear, and it's like all of a sudden there's, you know, the hinge that's squeaking, everybody can start hearing it, you know, and because somebody is like, you know, guarding or pulling away, or somebody's agitated, or, you know, like the energies are moving. And if we just pay attention and bring our attention to whatever's actually happening, because there's always something happening. I love that
Mm.
line from Peaceful Warrior. It's like there's never nothing happening. If you're
Yeah.
bored because you think nothing's happening, it means you're not present, you're not paying attention, because there's always something happening. That we are alive, and energy is always moving. It's never stagnant.
Mm.
So yeah, that's it's just a practice of being present and following what is, what's here. And that emergence is so intelligent and so rich that even the most enlightened and experienced guru, if they were sitting before the session trying to create the perfect exercises, they wouldn't have thought of what emerges organically in that process. Like, it's so much better because it comes from our collective input and our collective intelligence. And then it not only serves one, say, focal client like you would in some modalities, but it actually serves us all in some way, because
Mm.
some people need the experience of being a giver, or being the parent, or being, you know, the healer. And not everyone, you know, like that's also just as valuable as someone coming into their power, or confronting somebody, or, you know, like when it's so when a workshop space is so heavily reliant on the one facilitator, or maybe there's more than one, but usually it's the facilitator who's guiding everything and coming with the insights and coming with the direction and coming with, like, when it's really opened up, that all of us have our own responsibility to connect to source and to feel our own system and to listen and express what comes through each of us individually, and we all collaborate in that field and what we bring to it, something happens that's absolutely magic, that just doesn't happen anywhere else in my experience. I've done about 700 of these sessions, which is over 2,000 hours. I've never experienced another space where that level of magic happens reliably and yeah, consistently.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. Maybe you can go into a little bit like how you got into it, because it seems like, yeah, you've been exploring different modalities and then sort of like incorporating together your findings and like your research and your study into personal development and
Yeah,
well-being and group cohesion.
yeah,
And it's been
yeah.
a while, I guess, that you've
Yeah,
been
I mean,
doing this work as well.
my journey started a long time ago. I was, it all starts from somewhere, from some. I mean, some people start with more trauma than others, or different, triggering experiences. Some people have a near-death experience. Some people have a midlife crisis. I had some early traumas. I was separated from my mother at birth, and I was raised
Mhm.
by parents who weren't very attentive and were alcoholic, and it was quite not the most nourishing environment, you could say. Is and I had my own psychiatrist and was 6, 7 years old, because I had these tics that I developed, coughing, neck twitching, eye twitching, and that process over a couple of years really helped and healed, and they stopped. And I remember I had a recurring dream that kept changing as the healing process went on, which is very interesting. Um, I'm going to kind of try to fast forward through this so it doesn't take a really, really long
Mhm.
story. But
Yeah.
moving into young teens, did social work, and then saw therapists that way. And I would say, and then, yeah, no, but it's really, I mean, I find it relevant, like when we start these inquiries, because like when I was 6, I'm like, oh, where do I belong? I don't know if I belong with these parents, this kinds of questions. And when I was about maybe 11 years old, I started reading Henry David Thoreau and started looking at the contemplative life, like the life really, really thought about, and concepts like civil disobedience, and really being true to yourself, and
Mhm.
really became prominent to me already at age 11. And then at age 18, I left home. I became homeless, traveled with Grateful Dead, went to rainbow gatherings, and became present to a different kind of lifestyle, and different people that like saw humans
Mhm.
as one family, and found people that like to hug and sing music and connect. And I'm like, oh, this is different. This is much nicer. And then when I was 20, I really connected with the teacher Osho from India,
Mhm.
who had just left his body, actually, 6 months before. But I didn't know that at the time. But I started listening to his audio tapes and reading his books, and it was very, very powerful for me, because I remember reading his book, and I had this kind of inner explosion, and I was just like, wow. And I got, this guy knows me. Like I had never experienced that before in my life.
Mhm.
And And then it just occurred to me, if people are living what I'm reading about, I have to be there. And the only place I knew about was their main center in Pune, India. So 3 weeks later, that's where I was. And I spent the next 9 months or so there, doing meditations every
Mhm.
day and learning, so doing my first healing training. And if I had to pick one point in my entire life that was the biggest turning point, that was it. Because then all of a sudden I'm really learning to look inward, not just outward. And so then I'm really learning, what is meditation, and how do I look inward for things and tune into my inner dynamics, and also having an expanded worldview, and how to understand the world in a different way. But also because I was looking in and feeling things for the first time, I was very sad for a long time, because I was processing a lifetime of, couple decades of grief, really,
Mhm.
of not feeling connected and nourished. So it took a lot of time in a way to process that as well. Um, okay, so then I spent decades doing all kinds. I mean, I did some normal things in life as well. I was a taxi driver, food delivery driver, and other weird jobs here and
Mhm.
there. Um, but I was always doing some kind of personal development or training, or had a regular practice of meditation and so on. But I would say that the meditation practices for me evolved over time, and I now define it as 5 different stages of the evolution of meditation, which is how I experienced those steps kind of evolving. Um, and so it started, I consider maybe I'll go through that real quickly too because I think it's interesting. But I
Mhm.
consider like stage one meditation to be like Vipassana, like traditional sitting meditation. You're just really it's all five stages. The essence is witnessing. That's the essence of meditation is witnessing, being present and witnessing what is. So in stage one, you're sitting in silence with your eyes closed and you're watching your thoughts, you're watching your breath. That's it. And then in stage two, it's more active meditation. So that means I'm still witnessing, but I'm moving my body. It could include ecstatic dance, also active meditations, shaking, dancing, humming. You're doing things with the body. And so you're still witnessing your thoughts and your body, but you're also witnessing movement and expression, a bit more. Uh, for me, stage three was getting more interactive and getting more emotional. This was like the Humaniversity social meditations, like the Om meditation, where you're interactively in Om meditation, you have 12 stages and you're going through anger and love and crying and laughing and 12 different emotional stages interactively. And not so much as a dialogue, but using the other person as a mirror and a mandala to trigger whatever that emotion is. And okay, but the essence is still witnessing. I'm witnessing that I'm not my mind, I'm not my thoughts, I'm not my body, I'm not my emotions either. So, really bringing the emotional body into the witnessing paradigm. I'm not my emotions just the same as I'm not my thoughts. I can watch my thoughts come and go like clouds in a clear blue sky. Same way with the emotions. The emotions come, the emotions go. I don't identify with them so much. So, that becomes like another layer of the meditation. Then years later, and I've done many other trainings along the way. I've studied with a Landmark and Avatar and the Hendricks Institute and Institute for Spiritual Partnership and yeah, David Data, Robert Masters, and I don't know, some other people where I studied different things. Then I got into what we kind of call the intersubjective meditations which includes circling and T group primarily for me. And
Hmm.
that's
Is
that's
that like stage four or
it'd be stage four, yeah. So
okay,
then
yeah.
so
This
then
is
we're
when you come
looking,
together in a group.
yeah, so like in stage three, I'm using my
One
emotion
on
to
one.
trigger your
Yeah.
emotion, and we're just triggering emotion. But like in stage four, there's a intention to really get someone else's world. We're actually weaving a shared inner reality together.
Mm.
And it's often done in a small group, but there's usually like a facilitator and a focal person, a client, or if you will. And that the focal person will be like, okay, we all want to get their world using them as a guide to see who they are. That's a circling. With T group, it's more even more less structured in a way as far as the facilitation, but it's still very in this moment, emotions, what's coming up right now relationally. Like as I'm with you in this moment, I feel this.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
so without story, future or past, just staying present, but weaving an actual shared reality. It's like, oh, you feel this and I feel that. And then we feel this together. And you start like really having this deep exploration of not only our shared external reality, but our shared internal reality.
Mm. And very much like a present moment, like being together in the present moment instead of too much in story. It's like being with you, I notice, or like I feel an impact on me when you shared this kind of reality of authentic relating,
Yeah, exactly. And
landing
and
into presence in togetherness.
And de depending on which practice you're doing, sometimes there'll be like we call it maybe a headline. So it's like you're saying, "Oh, I'm feeling like really sad right now," but to give context, you would say like headline, "My cat just died" or something. You
Mm.
don't tell the whole story, but you just give like a headline, which is enough to just sort of give a little bit of an orientation of the context for the emotion or
Mm.
whatever is happening. But to keep the emphasis in present moment.
Mm.
So for me, that was a very quite a revolution on the previous social meditations or I mean, I think there's some practices that might be in between some of these stages. Like I would say like walking meditation or Zazen is a little bit like 1.5 because you're kind of in between just sitting and activity, or maybe nonviolent communication is sort of between 3 and 4 because it can be kind of, if it's done, I guess, in a really good advanced way, it's kind of weaving a shared reality, or it could be more uh, processing with someone. So it kind of depends how it's being employed. Um, so I did like circling and tea group for several years, like probably 6 hours a week or more of practice time for several years. Loved it. So it was the richest part of my week. It was super great. And at a certain point, I felt like I was hitting a wall in some potential of it because I was feeling restricted by the form because I couldn't really bring all of myself, and I felt like there was some inherent need to be able to show up in my wholeness, really, to be a somehow have a practice that supports my wholeness, which means I can bring all my tools and knowledge and experience and like into the space. Um, that's what I was wanting. Now, it's not necessarily unusual or surprising that there's that limitation. That's the typical way. I mean, if you're going to an acupuncturist, you're going to expect to use needles. You kind of, each modality has its particular way, and um, there's a certain way that these even circling and T group were doing things, and I felt that that was in a similar way. I couldn't bring in my other tools, and I wanted that freedom to be able to do that. If I'm really going to show up in my wholeness in service of humanity and in service of our connection and in service of our full the best possible healing that could be present in that moment, then I want to be able to have all my tools available.
Mm.
So like, how do I do that? I don't know. I couldn't figure it out. I tried to figure it out, couldn't do it. Eventually, I basically quit my job, sold my home, surrendered, threw my hands up to the universe, and was like, I don't know what to do. Universe, tell me what to do to live an aligned life. Where do I go? What do I do? And then it was 7 days later, I had an experience, and it was kind of like the universe was like, "Here, you can do it this way." And that was the beginning of the field of awakening. Only 7 days after I left my home, but it was, I tried to do it in the old paradigm. I took my job from 5 days to 4 days a week to 3 days a week to even, I think I was even down to 2 days a week at one point, thinking, well, I have all this extra time. I can focus on my soul work and my free time,
Mm.
and I don't know, maybe for somebody out there that would work. But for me, it was like I really had to leave the paradigm because my whole worldview and mindset was in a certain paradigm. And it was a limiting paradigm. And once I really let that go and being like, okay, I don't need the security and the home and the job. I don't need to be stuck in that paradigm. It really opened up something and really gave me the space to come up with something different. And so then the field of awakening was basically born, and the 3 principles and 3 agreements that I first did the very first session with are exactly the same today. Nothing's ever changed. Um,
Mm.
and I remember it's kind of funny, even at the beginning of that first session, I think I had 4 possible agreements, and we were talking about it beforehand. I had 2 co-facilitators too. I invited 2 friends. I was like, "Oh, I have this idea. Do you want to come, co-facilitate with me?" And they both said yes. And then they became my co-facilitators for the first year and a half, and that was fantastic. But at that first session, we were like, should we do this fourth? And it wasn't until the last second we decided to like, okay, these 2 are similar enough that we're just gonna like go with this one.
Mm.
It's kind of funny. But so yeah, the field of awakening, of course, not surprising in my map, field of awakening is stage 5. But why is that different, or what makes it different? And I think with relational meditations, it's mostly getting connection and a shared reality with there's still a focus on the self or in the other and creating a shared reality with two people. With Field of Awakening, we expand that into the organism of the whole group being an organism. So if there's, whether it's 5 people or 10 or 20 or 30 people in the room, how do we all bring our awareness and our attention and our intention, our focus into listening to how we can deepen as an organism and as if we're one body. And
Mm.
I don't know of any other modality that does that explicitly. I know of some teachers that talk about the idealism of that, but I don't see it in any other practice. Maybe it exists somewhere, but I haven't seen it. Um, and so that's phenomenal. I mean, it still includes checking in with self and checking in with another individual, but then you have this third aspect of always having some awareness or antenna into the group field and how are we doing as a group. So anybody that
Mm.
maybe might be a healer out there, if you work on a body and you might, if you're sensitive to energy, I know people are going to have different capacities and experiences with that, but like maybe you'll experience some like the energy is not flowing through the knee or the shoulders are tight or whatever it is. Like you notice like where in the body does there need support, and you might notice also where is their resource. Like where is their openness and where is it balanced and flowing and where is it like constricted or tight or an energy knot or something. Um, and it's really in some ways the same if you're looking at the group in this way as a facilitator of the field of awakening. It's like we're one body of maybe we're 12 people, but we're one body. So like, is there one person that is like the energy is not flowing through them, or is there and is there other people where there's a lot of openness and resource and support, and then as a healer, how do we align with that, right? Because we're not there to fix directly, to change things, like to make things right, but we're facilitating, we're catalysts, we're creating a space where those things could happen, and maybe okay, it's like, because is there a log I can move so that the water flows down the river? It's just like simple things to like, okay,
Mm.
how can we relax together more?
You
Yeah.
just fell away for like a half a minute or something, or
Oh,
15
really?
seconds. Yeah.
That was
But I
my
guess
best.
Zoom caught it, but
Maybe,
um
maybe. Let's hope for that.
I think I got what you were saying. Yeah, maybe it's interesting. Yeah, it's like it feels like when at the beginning of a field of awakening, it feels like this is like the people I'm gonna be sort of like stuck with for 3 hours. And um it's really interesting how that evolves. Maybe it would be a good time to go into like the structure of the container and explaining a bit about the three agreements and the three principles.
Okay, sure. And like you say, like, it feels like well, everything is about how you frame it, right? It's kind of like you can, I remember I was watching one person being supported, and they felt like trapped in this cave, and then through this dialogue they realized they were protected in this cave, and it's like it's really a matter of framing. And so like, okay, I could be stuck with these people for 3 hours, or I could like have this, you know, nourishing nest with these people for a few hours. It's like
Yeah.
it's really how and that's like there's no right or wrong per se, but we tend to create our experience through how we choose to perceive things. And that tells a lot more about ourselves when we notice what our own
Mhm.
reference point is.
Yeah,
Like
it's like
what's
receiving multiple mirrors at the same time. And it
yeah.
isn't like with some groups, it feels like easy to like our experience like easily becomes like a big pile of cuddling and massaging and like like nourishing care, sort of like a group of monkeys like grooming each other for 3 hours. And with other groups, there is like some tension that wants to be addressed, or some authority issues or some conflict, and then that is also very valuable when these underlying tensions appear to the surface and the crack starts to open. And for me, sometimes that is like feels like even more alive. But yeah, it really much depends on who comes together, and whatever group there is like something to learn and something to take away from. Yeah.
That's a really great point, and um, this is why I never define a successful field is that we achieve some particular experience. The goal is not to have a nourishing cuddle pile or to just, feel good at the end even. That's not the goal. The goal is more this authenticity of being present with the emergence. That intelligent emergence actually tells us what we need the most. And if we follow that, it's successful, even if that means maybe somebody's agitated at the end or they're a little pissed off, or like it's okay.
Mm.
There's no judgment that you have to feel a certain way when you're done. Um, Although I would say it's if it's in service of becoming more self-aware and more self-actualized, say, then of course it's a good thing. What I notice over the hundreds of sessions that I've done is that there's often a couple um, phases that we phase that a group will phase through, like these two phases. Like there's a phase of needing nourishment and creating safety and bonding and building resource in the group. Like there's this kind of resource building, nourishing phase. And then if we're really staying present with that, at some point we're kind of full up. And now we're ready for this other phase, which is expansion, which is taking some risk, which is exploring some edges. It's like exploring, something new and expanding, or okay, now I'm a little more resource. I can address this thing I was afraid to look at earlier, but now I feel like I have enough capacity to do that. And so then it's like this risk taking. And then if the risk taking is goes on for a while, and this is why also I do 3 hour sessions instead of 2 hours. I don't think it's long enough, but with 3 hours, there's usually enough time for a few different things, phases to happen, like a symphony would have different, here's a fast and here's some slow time, and it's like okay, now we're ready to explore something, and we did some risk taking. Now we're ready to come down and just kind of relax and nourish together and integrate a little bit, and then maybe we do that long enough and we're like, oh, let's explore something else, and like it
Yeah.
becomes this, in some ways, and it occurs to me now, it's not too dissimilar to even what a young toddler might experience if they have a healthy attachment with their parent. They're like, oh, they cuddle with the parent and they're like, okay, now I want to go off exploring. And the healthy parent will let them go do that, and they'll go off exploring and they'll like go off to the new things, and eventually they'll get tired and they want to come back and they want to hang out in mama's lap again. And that's the healthy balance, and it's a healthy rhythm. And then they want to go exploring again. And I find this the same in every single group that exists. It's both individuals and a group as a living organism, as an entity, has the same characteristics. And that's a natural and healthy pattern of kind of building resource, doing healing work, bond and trust building and bond building and so on, and then going into
Mm.
risk taking and
Yeah.
exploring edges and so on.
Mm. So when, like, because I was introduced into, I have also a Google Doc around like minimum viable structure to host a field of awakening. Um, so yeah, it's basically like calling for the group. It's a 3 hour container. Um, like creating a sort of atmosphere in which people can arrive and land in a sort of like inner meditation space where they can become like accustomed to like starting to be aware of whoever enters, because that is like our organism. And when someone new comes in, like how does that affect the experience or the sensation? So there's like quite a lot of time for that's like landing, and that's like experiencing like the dream body of the group forming. And maybe there's someone that decides that they don't want to stay there, so they leave. Like how does that like affect the experience? Um, and then like closing the door sort of like 5 minutes after time, so that's like this is gonna be the container. Um, so they're protecting the field. And yeah, then I guess at some point explaining the three principles and the three agreements. So do you wanna maybe go into those?
Yeah, let's do that. Um, yeah, so we have these three principles and three agreements. We might as well just get those out there.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's so much as you're kind of pointing to, there's a lot of subtle context around it that
Mm,
supports the field as well. And noticing the slowing down, noticing the small things, even someone, move changing their arm or leg position, or can have an energetic impact on how we're feeling in the group. And
mm,
especially if someone moves position or leaves or just goes to the bathroom, or, it's like there's a shift in the energy of the room as people are moving. And I think in normal society, we're kind of conditioned to ignore these things, and because none of it's right or none of it's wrong. Even it's not that none of it should happen. It's like it's just paying attention to how we're impacted, because that gives us information, uh, and allows our deeper intelligences to inform us better.
mm,
So yeah, I like that slowing down, and as you say, like after we really start, at some point we lock the door and we don't allow anyone else in, because it's like we're weaving the organism together, and so to have someone come in after we're already setting context usually means we're more or less starting over, which is another
mm,
choice the group could make, for instance. But um, for the most part, I try to give decisions to the group rather than to make decisions for the group as the facilitator, because the organism does have its own intelligence, and when it's given that freedom and chance to make those decisions, which is to say, okay, we locked the door 5 minutes ago and someone's knocking, can I come in? Can I come in? And like in a traditional sense, you could say, no, we've already started, goodbye. But it's also interesting to like, okay, how did the group, we've already started, we've already dropped in. What's the impact? Even just feeling someone outside the door, to feel that we're going to say no to them also has an impact. Yes or no, there's an impact, right? Somebody's there. And whether we say yes or no, there's still an impact. And what do we want to choose? Do we want to stick to we already have a clear agreement, but if everyone decides that we're okay with it and we want them in, maybe a few people knew they were coming, or there's extenuating circumstances. So then, like, okay, maybe we decide to start over and have them come in, and we kind of integrate them into the organism, which takes some time.
mm. Like
Um,
giving the power to the group, like
yeah,
allowing the group to have the power to make the decision. And I guess that's like the special, like outside of the three principles and three agreements, there's um the special rule, which is called the prime directive, which
yeah,
is basically what you just described, sort of like the rule that supersedes all rules. That is
yeah,
like we decide for the benefit of all that now we're gonna change the rules.
yeah.
Something from Star Trek or something. I remember your
Yeah, for
inspiration.
those people who watched Star Trek, the original Star Trek, which was back in the 1960s, um, there was they travel, the galaxy to worlds, and the rule that they couldn't break was always don't reveal yourself as an advanced civilization to an ancient civilization, or still developing civilization. You can't reveal your phaser guns to cavemen. Like that's a no-no in their book. So even if you need their resources under their city or something, you can't get it unless you can do it secretly. Anyway, that's just like a fun reference. But what it means in Field of Awakening is that, okay, we have these three principles and three agreements, which we haven't got to yet. We're about to get there. But it's like this prime directive is to honor and support the health and vitality of the organism. That's it. Honor and support the health and vitality of the organism. And then by organism, we mean the group as an organism. And that becomes the compass, if you will, when you're not sure what to do in a circumstance. Like, oh, this is an unusual circumstance. What do we do now? I don't know. Like, okay, well, what supports the organism the most? And that becomes like you know, the dowsing rod or the compass or whatever, the benchmark, the reference point, whatever you want,
Mm.
whatever term you might use, to be able to decipher what to do in that situation. Um, yeah, okay. Anyway, it's interesting because even sharing principles and agreements, which we said we would go into, um, it's always interesting to me because I know sometimes I emphasize having everyone read them ahead of time so they really kind of know what they're getting into. Um, and then other times I've had people just show up and then we talk about them and feel them and sometimes that's also interesting because it's in a way they're more than just an intellectual exercise, right? They're it's an experience that we drop into in a way. Anyway,
Mm. I
I might
noticed that over your Fields of Awakenings that you empathize different sentences, or you describe it like just with another wording that feels more aligned to like what the group needs to hear in this moment.
mm,
So like,
yeah.
because also reading your book, it's like you have so many different wording to describe sort of a thing, and then you sort of like feel like what is this specific like organism, like what would be good for them to hear, or what is like coming through in the moment. But
Mm.
yeah, so it can be described in many ways, but I guess you, as we describe it now, it will be just one of
Yeah.
the ways that it can be expressed. It's very like in the moment feeling and sensing as a facilitator, and like taking a lot of time for the words to come through. And yeah, I felt like I received always like some other inputs or some other message as I was listening to the principles and the agreements. So yeah.
I would like to think that every time I do it, it's always because one of the chapters in my book, as you know, is called Speaking From versus About. Like from means I'm really feeling the energy and I'm speaking from the energy to the energy. Like I'm speaking from within, say, the group field and speaking to the group field, right? I'm not outside of it directing people. I'm part of it, inside it. And so it's like that's a very unique um, capacity to be able to sense the energy of the space and then speak from from using the body as a gauge and a barometer for what's going on in my experience and in feeling the room. Um, and yeah, and you're also pointing to some of the advanced, I would say, quote unquote, advanced, because we have also dozens of these distinctions, the book of which is seven of them. And these distinctions are these lenses with which we can see, view, and understand what's going on in the group dynamics in a more clear, more helpful way. Um, and so those distinctions are also great. That's one of the reasons I wrote the book, because I don't have time to spend many hours lecturing before each event. So if
Mhm.
people, plus I don't want to get people into their heads too much, and I don't want to set myself up as this external authority so much because I'm wanting to be part of the organism. But if I can put some of these concepts down into the book, people can read it and integrate it and have some understanding before they show up, and then they would get more out of it and be
Mm.
able to give more to it and get more out of it through having
Yeah.
those experiences. That was the original idea of the book, and then it was expanded to be intended to help anyone in personal development because it really applies to developing oneself, even if you don't come to
Mm.
field of awakening. Um, but how that ties in is that, like, as half of the introduction, give or take, is giving these principles and agreements, which are always the kind of the same, but might be introduced slightly differently. But then there's also like bringing in almost channeling what's the theme today, like because maybe we also have like some kind of a check-in round, and like maybe four people checked in about the pain of a breakup, or there's some kind of a theme or something going on, and I was like, okay, well, which one of these distinctions would be most supportive for that kind of emergent theme that's in the room? And then I
Mm.
might sort of just say a few things about that, having a relationship to impulse, or, internal versus external authority, or different, like how do we, work with the healing
Yeah.
organization. And
Do
so
you
that,
want to go into them shortly? Like relationship to impulse, the way I understand it, and why it's like nice to mention it to groups is because we have these like, yeah, different relationships to impulse. So it's like there is people that are, whenever they receive some insight or like a pull to do something or to say something, like they're very true to themselves, and they will like say it, or they will like take the action that they feel to take. But these people are often like, if we feel the group as organism, they're often taking a lot of space as well. Like they're receiving from the organism attention, space to take up. And then there is these people that are, um, yeah, like more hesitant. Like they can feel something inside, and then they will question whether they should bring that out or whether it's the good moment. So they're more aware of the others in that sense. And yeah, maybe coming from a family, like I think you said that once, like maybe coming from like a busy family dynamic where there wasn't always like so much attention or space for everyone's voice to be heard. So they might be more like holding back and being very aware of the family around them. And because doing like multiple fields with the same group, then it can become very clear, like, yeah, these people are always talking and these people are always quiet. And because we're not like telling people what to do or like guiding them necessarily, or I mean, there might be like subtle guidance, but it's sort of like bringing to attention like our
yeah, that's a
relationship to impulse, and then inviting sort of for being aware of like us as organism, what is this relationship to impulse? And yeah, these personalities then start to become a bit more quiet, and giving a bit more space to the slower impulses or the shyer impulses to also come forward.
yeah, exactly.
I think I described that well.
No, that's exactly right. But that's the difference, is like it's like I think with a facilitator who feels they have to make things happen, this is for lack of better phrasing, they're gonna somehow direct it and tell the people that are talking to, be quiet, or really invite people to speak up more if they haven't. And that's not necessarily bad. There's moments when I might say, as a facilitator, I'd like to hear from the people who haven't said anything yet, like just to really give space to that. But um, my preference is to really present something a little bit more meta, if you will. And it's like, yeah, like teaching the relationship to impulse is very interesting, because then we become our own, uh, uh, you know, our own guru, maybe. I don't know, our own witness, like, okay, what's my process? Am I just letting all my impulses out with no filter at all? Or do I, or do I just examine and repress my all my impulses to the point that they never get expressed? and noticing which end of the spectrum that I might be on, and then invite an exploration to do the opposite of what you're familiar with. And so, if you're someone that just lets all of your impulses out, what's it like to sit on it for a while and not act on it? Just sit on it, no action. What's that like? Just see what it's like, It's like, what's the harm in seeing what happens? And then if you're someone who's very shy, like what happens if you just allow that risk? You might feel like it's a big risk. Other people are going to be like, "Oh, that's just a normal conversation," but you probably feel like it's a big risk. What's it like to let that impulse out? And that impulse might be to make a comment to the room, or to stand up and stretch, or move your body. It could be anything, right? But it's to allow the impulse to move you in some way, and to just see what happens.
Mm.
Um, and I give that kind of instruction, like when I had a 6 week series, by week one, you had two or three heavy talkers, and a couple people didn't really say anything at all. And even by the third week, it was completely balanced. Like the talkers weren't talking so much, and the non-talkers were fully participating. And it was just, uh, by giving the orientation of, we are an organism, and how are we a healthy, balanced organism, that was enough, and everyone can self-regulate. And through that self-regulation and that self-awareness, the balance happens. And yeah, as you point to, like, it all comes from something in our history, usually our childhood upbringing, because we all need love and we don't want to be abandoned to die. And so, uh, for some people, your survival meant being finely attuned to irrational parents who would get irritated at the smallest thing. So you're constantly aware of others, because you really don't want to upset the space. And for other people, maybe with lots of siblings, perhaps, um, the only way you actually get love or get noticed is if you're quite expressive and flamboyant. And so you learn to express yourself as a way of you know knowing that you exist and that you're not going to be left behind, and so on. And yeah, it's quite simple in a way, and it actually holds true for 99% of us. I think that it just, we keep those patterns for the rest of our lives if we don't really look at them closely and decide if it really serves us. Because I think for most of us, it probably did serve us at the time when we were young children, because our parents did, we did survive. They did, it worked in that dysfunctional environment. Most of it is, some is heavily dysfunctional, some is only mildly dysfunctional, but most families are a little bit weird.
Yeah.
But now maybe it doesn't work so well anymore. Maybe as an adult with your new life or new family, it's like not the best approach.
Yeah.
They're not producing the results you want. So then you can actually look at, okay, well, it's your choice. You can continue if you want, but is that what I still want to be doing?
Yeah.
Okay,
So
yeah.
when people come together, you might sort of like feel into like all this information that you have. That is like a lot of it is written in the book. I have it here.
Cool,
Um,
yeah.
and
Give them
just
a
sort of
link.
like throw in like some of your information, sort of like sensing in like, well, this could be beneficial, to
Yeah.
to have as input. Do you also sometimes, I don't know about that other, like, so it's relationship to impulse, and then inner versus outer authority. Would you also sometimes say something about that? Because that's also quite a meaningful chapter, I find.
Yeah, sure. The inner versus outer authority. I mean, most of us are hyper conditioned to listen to external authorities. I mean, we all have to as children. Our mother and father are the external authority. That's there's no way around that. They are the ones. We are helpless, and we don't really know how anything works in the world. We can't take care of ourselves as young babies at all. And even as young kids, we're pretty helpless. So it's like, yeah, but we tend, again, it's one of those things that we don't really, most of us really examine. and it carries forward in some other way for the rest of our life because we give that same level of external authority to our teachers and professors, to perhaps clergy or a religious person of whatever our particular path religion is, or maybe we get really spiritual, we give it away to a guru because they're really enlightened, and we
Mm.
give it away to the workshop leaders, whatever, the
Yeah.
facilitators of these all the workshops that we do now in personal development. But if you're still
Mm.
giving away your power to these people, which means you're letting them decide what your truth is or what it is you need or what exercise you should do and so on. You're not really listening. If you're not listening to your own inner voice, if you're not connected directly to the void, to the emptiness of the cosmos, and really listening, what do I want? What wants to come through me? And not only as an individual, but as a member of the whole. What's my place and my function here? If we're really listening to that, then that is our inner authority. Then we listen to that. And I remember one of the early quotes I got from Osho. He's like, "Obey no command unless it is a command from within." It's like, yeah, people say, "Oh, you should do this," or "You should do that," and it's like I'm always checking. Sometimes my inner compass, my inner voice, whatever you want to call it, will agree, and sometimes it won't. But if it doesn't, I listen to that. It's like, no, it doesn't feel true to me. And that's a very mature way of living, is to really own your authority.
Mm.
And I guess we have rules, we have laws, we have 10 commandments or some version of that in religion and so on. Um, they're all there for it's not like they're bad. Like I agree, we shouldn't go around killing people. But or a lighter version, say stealing from people, right? But if I know that my neighbors aren't stealing from me because they're afraid of prison, that's a different experience from I know my neighbors aren't stealing from me because they know it's right in their being to not steal, and they choose it. They choose not to do that. Like it's an empowered choice. It creates a different relationship. All of our relationships become a bit different.
Mm.
When we know that each of us is claiming our inner authority and we're actually choosing a path out of informed, mature perspective rather than being submissive to laws that have been enforced upon us, it's a very different experience of life, both for myself
Mm.
and my connection with other people.
Yeah.
And so that's not an interpretation that you should go around doing bad things at all, but because the vast majority of laws and commandments and such are there, uh, were created by mature people who were like, this is how a mature person would act. And so, I mean, in a sense, they are good in that sense of being reflective of this is how a good person can act. But it's very it's just so different when we're really choosing it because then we can also go to much higher places because not stealing and not killing, which is already two of the 10 commandments, is actually a pretty low bar. But what if yeah, uh, you shouldn't insult other people or give them nasty looks with your facial expression. Okay, there's no law against that. But what if it was a mature person's perspective that that's actually not nice and not a good thing to do? Then you're actually choosing a higher shared reality and shared context for living and supporting each other than what the law actually provides. The law just makes sure that we don't kill or steal from each other. But if we can really be mature people, really creating something together out of maturity, we can really help each other thrive rather than um, just survive and fight for
Mm.
scraps. It's a very, very different experience of life.
Yeah. In the workshop, to sort of like address that, um you could say something like, notice whether you're expecting something like something to happen from the facilitator
Mm.
or something in that sense, right? Like notice if you're like expecting to be told what to do or like to be entertained or because
Yeah.
it's like a bit like that moment like after we have done the introduction, the sharing rounds of check-ins and then like shared the principles and the agreements. There's this like moment when the facilitators is sort of like, yeah, now we're just gonna like listen for the emergent impulse. So, like, there's not a plan or there's not an agenda anymore after that moment until
Yeah.
the end, until the checkout round. So that's like this, for me, that's like the most interesting, like the takeoff moment when it's like, and then like
Most
no, like,
most people are
yeah,
very unfamiliar with that. They
yeah,
don't
it's like all of a sudden it's like, well, now the space is open. As a participant for the first time, it's something like, oh, okay, like, I can like my presence is influencing this reality and like if I wanna, if I'm uncomfortable and I'm too uncomfortable for myself to hold, I can like do something or change something or initiate something or propose something. So that's like a different
a lot of
experience. Like as a
possibilities.
participant, it's a lot of like the power is sort of like given back to the participants, like
Yeah.
to choose together, like what's to see how far we can listen to what wants to come and how far can we step out of our own way to allow that to come through. But yeah, in the beginning, that relationship with authority and the expectation like of this like lifelong just like sort of following structure and leaders, um yeah, this is interesting experience.
Yeah.
Is there more things that you would like sort of like say to the group or when you like want to invite that back, like that awareness around that topic or cues that you would give
I,
or something?
yeah, I mean, the discipline is because in some ways we say the field of awakening is more of a container than it is a modality because it's more container than content. Because you can do other modalities within field of awakening if it's actually what serves and what everybody's open to. So in a sense, you could say anything could happen within that container, which is true, but that's not the point. The point is listening for what wants and needs to happen. And that's where the individual practice, self-awareness, the discipline of listening, not just putting random bullshit into the space, but really listening what wants to happen, what needs to happen, what's yearning to happen. And to be okay that nothing happens. Nothing has to happen. There's nothing we have to make happen. This is so different from also most workshops that are like, I mean, it's easy to give someone a state change. If you want someone to like feel pumped or psyched or have a different view of the world, we can have people dance or do heavy breathing or do some exercise, and they're gonna like feel changed at the end of the workshop. That's easy. It doesn't necessarily mean they've done anything to become more mature or to cultivate a deeper self-awareness. It just means they've created some endorphins or some chemical release in their body or something. It's like it's not the same thing. Here it's what without someone guiding you, like what really what's quaking you, like the Quakers would use that word quake in their meetings, right? Like if they just sit in silence the whole meeting, it's fine. But if someone's quaked, it's kind of like the universe is stirring them to speak into the space as an
Mm,
agent of the universe, right? And this is how
mm,
I feel the field of awakening is. It's like I am an agent of the universe. What does the universe want with me? and
mm,
and I listen for that. I listen what really wants to happen here that's in service of our wholeness and our aliveness. I'm
mm,
listening. What is in service of that? So it's not just doing random things. It's not just lying around and it's like but having a meditative practice to stay more aware and more alert and more present. What am I feeling in my body? What's happening in my thoughts? What's happening, is there emotional? What's in my heart space? Tune into my different layers. Am I feeling an instinctual pull to move towards something or away from something? Like what's happening? And especially when you have a room full of people. I mean, we are social creatures, so there's going to be someone that's like really attractive. There's going to be someone that kind of pisses you off. There's going to be like, I'm going to feel all
Mm.
kinds of things. If I'm really looking at each person and tuning into them, like I also might identify them as like, oh yeah, that's my third boss. There's my ex-girlfriend. There's my, whatever, my kid. Like all the like the energies are there and they're stirring. So like what, you know, how do we, this is where the authentic relating type practices can also come in because it's not that you have to know what's going to happen or make something happen, but do you have the courage to be transparent, to reveal? Like I notice I'm sitting with some agitation, I don't even know what it's about. Or I notice when I look at you that um, I'm feeling really curious, like what's going, like you just share what do you, open what I'm experiencing or what you're curious about or
Mm.
sharing what is and what's happening and things will naturally evolve and unfold and open up. And that's when the magic happens is when we're doing that collectively.
Yeah. Mm. And I suppose like both those relationship to impulse and inner versus outer authority, it's like we're all like in our process around that. Like we're all in our developmental stages. So like sometimes it is like really beneficial for a person to sort of like reclaim that power and sort of like, yeah, it's like a learning experience sometimes. And then once we are sort of past that stage of evolution within ourselves, yeah, then we can put ourselves out of the way more easily and be together in that coherent field and listen to the quakes of the universe like coming through with their impulses and yeah.
One of my favorite quotes from myself from my own book is
Mhm.
and this really comes from my experience doing healing work as well. As I say, we either expand into infinity or we find and be with whatever's in the way.
Mm.
And that
Yeah.
it's as simple as that, right? Because if I expand into infinity, then okay, then I'm an empty, I'm a beginner's mind, I'm open energy, I'm a vessel of the universe, and then things can happen and through me. Or I hit whatever's in the way and I'm like, okay, now I'm just agitated about this thing, or I can't let go of this, this thing that's not completed or not processed. And I would say the goal isn't to try to just get rid of those or blast through them. It's more to give them attention and love them so that they can really be appreciated and integrated because they are there for a reason. They're like
Yeah.
wounded parts of ourselves that we want to care for. And that goes into the healing orientation that we're really inviting wholeness, which means integrating, fractured parts of ourselves as well.
Yeah.
So it's okay not to be expanded into infinity. It's like, okay, that's just what is. It's like, oh yeah, right now in this moment, I'm having this experience of regret or nostalgia or lamenting or whatever it is.
Yeah. I have a quote from Osho from your book here.
Cool.
Intelligence is dangerous. Intelligence means you will start thinking on your own. You will start looking around on your own. You will not believe in the scriptures. You will believe only in your own experience. So I guess that's from the chapter Inner Authority. Yeah, for me, that was like in my evolution, like I feel like I needed to do work around authority and power and reclaiming, like having some moments of like reclaiming that power and yeah, but I'm like progressing on that as well.
Mm,
So it's nice that the space can be all of that.
yeah,
I think we're ready to go into the three agreements
cool.
or the three
I
principles.
I can add one quick thing maybe, which is the it doesn't mean we don't have some tiered authority structures in the world and we can't live with them. We can live with them. Like you still have a boss at work. You still, if you have a job, it's like
Mm.
that's okay. It's not that you have to get rid of all structure or all authority in that way, but you're claiming your own choice to be there and to cooperate with the company's objectives and so on. And if you don't agree with something, you can object to this one particular task, or if you don't like the whole company, you can quit. But you're there by choice, not by coercion. That's the important thing. But yeah, you can still listen to your boss, and then again, you're listening. Okay, do I feel aligned with that or not? It's like we still
Mm.
have presidents and we still have governments, and that's not going away. We're not trying to get rid of that. But we create more empowered cooperation by choice rather than coercion, something
Mm.
like that.
Yeah. What's that thing like the Ken Wilber, the thing with the colors?
The
Is that
stages of
also
development. Yeah, the integral
stages
stages
of
of,
integral
or altitudes of development. Yeah,
integral development or something?
pause it now. Okay, we're back.
So the first principle.
Right, let's get into it now before there's another sidetrack.
Mm.
Presence, presence. The presence is the first principle. Being present with self, present with other, present with the group. Pretty much simple right there. So the second one is connection, noticing that we're connected, noticing we're already impacting each other all the time, which is an interesting realization
Mm.
when we're paying attention to the subtle impacts of life, you know, the people around us, the people in the room with us, the people that are, we're always being impacted and we're always impacting others simply by how we're present, um, how our energy is. And the third principle is surrender, just letting go of my expectations, letting go of my agenda, letting go of my plans, letting go of my judgments, really being open to the unknown and even the unknowable, letting the great mystery have its way or to be informed by things that are not in my conscious already.
Mm.
And yeah, the principles are quite simple that way. Presence, connection, surrender.
Mm.
So if I stay present and in an interconnected awareness and in a surrendered state, allowing what wants to happen, then that's it. It's a very, very simple in that way.
Mm.
The three agreements are a little more involved to ponder, shall we say. Um, in some ways, the three agreements are how we hold and enact the principles. So the first agreement is I claim 100% responsibility for my own experience. I claim 100% responsibility for my own experience. So yeah, people can try that on. It's like it's not about blaming, like you're responsible, I'm responsible. It's more I claim is also an important part of it because being responsible for my own experience is found in certainly some spaces as a common workshop agreement, shall we say? But the I claim is I've never seen anywhere else actually, but I think it's actually really important because it's about a choice. It's a choice point to say, look, I claim responsibility for kind of how I'm going to approach life. It's like you might not get to choose what cards are dealt to you, but you can choose how to play them. You might not get to choose everything that happens to you in your life, and you could have a different metaphysical conversation about how you may or may not be influencing some of those things. But that's in a way debatable. What's not really debatable is that you can choose how to respond. And that's what's really empowering is I can choose how to respond. Okay. I lost a leg. I can choose to give up and commit suicide, or I can choose to get a prosthetic and still be an Olympic athlete. I mean, there's people that are faced with all kinds of challenges in life. You can choose what to do with it. You can choose how to respond. And that's where all of life freedoms comes from, is choice.
Mm.
So that's the point of the first agreement, is I claim 100% responsibility for my own experience. I choose how to respond to life. The second agreement, I use one word, I call it totality. I got this word originally from a description of how to do Osho's active meditations, but I find it really an interesting way to perceive how to also approach life, which is to 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 go all in, to really play, to not have one foot in and one foot out. It means in the context of the container of Field of Awakening, it means I commit to being here the whole time with my whole self and to fully participate. Like that's what it means. In life, it means something similar, right? Like, okay, I'm agreeing to bring all of my resources and to do the best I possibly can. Like that's totality for me.
Mm.
And that makes a big difference, right? And they're like, oh, I don't know if I like this. I don't know if I'm gonna play or not, or I'm gonna scroll Facebook on the side or whatever it is. It's like just drop all of it, drop all of that. Put the devices away, show up fully right here in this moment for this workshop and this experience, because you're not going to notice what's happening in you or in others or in the group if you're busy daydreaming about other things.
Mm. Yeah.
The
And
third
being here
agreement,
with all parts of ourselves, like that's something you mentioned one time, like being also present with our intuition, our emotion, like our shadow, our unconscious, being here with all parts. Like,
yeah, being willing to look at my blind spots if they're being shown to me. And if someone else is pointing at something too, it doesn't mean they're right either, but I'm open to the investigation. I'm open to looking at it. I'm open to the possibility. Or
mm,
you could also say it another way, is that I'm open to being wrong about anything, which, by the way, is another thing that could be very helpful if everyone really took this on in their social media interactions, right? Because you have these social media wars, and nobody's
mm,
really interacting so much as just talking at each other, and
mm,
and everyone wants to represent truth with a capital T, like this is the way things are. And this ties back to the inner versus outer authority. I don't think anyone has uh, the monopoly on truth or has any right to claim what is true for another person. We're a bunch of subjectivities gathered together. It's like there's so much layers of complexity to that. It's incomprehensible. Um, all I can say when I speak about my experience is that this is what is true for me out of my whole life experience. This is my best sense making of the world to date, but it could be completely wrong. I mean, if you look at history, we've always been completely wrong. We all thought the world was flat, then it was round, or we all thought the best way to carry apples with our hands until someone invented the basket, and we thought the basket was the best until someone invented a wheelbarrow. We thought
mm.
that was the best until someone invented a truck, and so on and
Yeah,
so forth. Like we never really fully understand what the next potentials are until they come.
yeah,
So how do we know? I mean, this is the best we have so far. We can say that, and it's the best
yeah,
I understand. But to say this is the truth, and this is what should be true for you, like I have no right to do that. So I vehemently, really resist anyone telling me what my truth should be. And of course,
yeah,
this could come up really strongly in a religious paradigm. If anyone in a religious community, because they love people in religious communities love having a monopoly on what truth is. We are the saved ones, and you're going to
yeah.
eternal damnation, and they know that for a fact. I'm like, okay, don't tell me what you think you know. Yeah, you can live with that if you want, but that's not my truth.
I think
Um,
it goes already into the third agreement, sort of.
yeah, good. So the third agreement is extend regard. I call it extend regard. That was the words I came up with. What that means is that I care for you. I care for your heart. I care for your experience. I extend my consideration for how my decisions and actions may impact you. And like I was saying, like I don't know 100% exactly what you're experiencing or what you might experience if I do a certain action, but I might have a pretty good guess. So to the best of my awareness and capacity, I am going to attempt to care for you as part of the organism that I am also a part of. And when I do that, there's a lot of beautiful things that happen. And this is an essential balancing point for the first one as well. Because if you have only the first agreement and everyone is just responsible for themselves, then it could be an excuse to be a bit of an asshole to other people, right? Or
Mm.
this is my truth. You don't like it, deal with it. Go see your therapist, whatever. But if we're really one organism, I know that I'm not going to thrive unless you're also thriving, and you and you and you and you are thriving because the cell in my pinky thrives as much as the cell in my earlobe, and the same as the cell in my liver. It's like one organism, like we're either all thriving or we're all dying. So like if I really tune into us as an organism, I really want all of us to thrive because I know the more you all are thriving, the more I'm going to thrive, and we support each other to thrive, and we all lift each other up. It is such an obvious thing in a way, if you
Mm.
really see that. And then, um, yeah, the
Yeah.
but then it's also a difference when we talk about the inner versus outer too, because it's like I'm not being nice to you because I'm trying to be a good person. I'm not being nice to you because I think it'll get me into heaven. I'm not being nice to you because I was told to be nice to you. I'm being nice to you because it serves the organism because I know that it helps us all be nice to each other and we all are lifted up. So
Mm.
you could even say it's very selfish to care for you because I know I'm going to benefit. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a bit of a paradox because they're interlaced. Our fates are interlaced.
Yeah.
And and by taking responsibility for my own experience and actually taking care of myself, it also serves you. Because I'm
Mm.
doing it for the benefit of the organism. I'm not doing it in order to put someone else down. I'm doing it
Yeah.
to an orientation of lifting everybody.
Mm.
So then you have responsible for self, totality, and extend regard as this kind of balanced, I'm caring
Yeah.
for everybody as in the most responsible, mature way that I am capable. Now, these are aims, they're lofty aims, you could say. We're not always going to be perfect at every principle and agreement all the time. But when we take them on as an agreement and as a commitment, then when we're taking it on as a practice, as something we're learning and
Mm.
getting better at. The analogy I got from the Hendrix was like if you're committed to riding a horse and you fall off the horse, does that mean you failed in your commitment? No, it means you get back on the horse, right? Because you're committed to riding. So it's the same here. It's like, okay, we're not perfect at all these things all the time, but we just keep trying. We go to the next level. We go on, we get back onto the inside the paradigm and do the best we can
Mm.
with it.
Yeah. And so in the circle, like in the workshop format, you will introduce those, and depending on whether you're with a group that is going through multiple cycles, it can be very short sometimes, or like especially a new group or with newcomers, it can be like a longer, and it can be also like answering, like asking, like, is there any questions about this, and going into this what we just went into. And then there's one more thing that I want to go into because you have like you travel not on your own. And when I first came, there was only one friend with you, a little mascot. But by the time that you left, there was like a whole. I guess you were preparing yourself to move to another country, so you were making sure your friends were going to come along. But yeah, I really liked the first one that you had, like like a little puppet, like representing the elephant in the room, sort of to
Yeah.
just give like awareness, like we can talk about this. So yeah, I really enjoyed that elephant in the room mascot.
Nice. Yeah, these are basically they're just little puppets. I guess I could pull them out if you want to see them, but there was just one originally, then there was two, and then there were six. But they're just little
Yeah.
reminders, like you say. Like I had this little elephant, little plush little, kid's toy or whatever. But it's like this is like a reminder that yeah, the elephant is in the room is something we can talk about here. Like we're really
Yeah.
invited to talk about it, and the elephant being, of course, the thing
Mm.
everyone's aware of, but no one's actually talking about.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
We have like another one,
What's
like a little mouse, and it's like that's the thing that maybe
mm,
only one person's aware of, but also the group could benefit, by being aware of it.
mm,
It's like
yeah.
very interesting.
I wonder like if we go more towards like wrap up or like what are like some next steps? Because I know you're working more on like another book that you've been working on also for like a long time. I think is more also connected to training facilitators or like giving even more awareness to what is like all these things that you learned from hosting these spaces and to sort of like it feels like you're more entering into the space of like the teacher or like the elder or the mentor that is sort of like transfer like starting this like transference of knowledge um from our last conversations and yeah starting like a few mentorships like this to spread the work and
Yeah, I have I have outlines and notes for at least several more books, maybe more. Um, I haven't really started fleshing in the next one out yet, but I've really been feeling that it's about leadership, um,
mm,
leadership and facilitation and things like, yeah, how does that show up from a organismic perspective, from a higher consciousness perspective, from a new paradigm perspective, or
mm,
second tier or teal or turquoise in the integral model. Well, how does it show up in that way? Because it's a little bit different from a military command and conquer, like kind of leadership.
mm,
Like how do we have a leadership that supports wholeness and integration and what are the skills and capacities of a leader that that
mm,
shows up that way and supports those things and yeah, so I have a lot of perspectives that I think are a bit yeah, unique in that direction, and I do look forward to getting that out. Also been working on um, other things as well, including music. Actually, have my first song ever on Spotify. Actually, it's a
mm,
re-release. I put it out on CD in 2004, and I just submitted it yesterday to be put out on Spotify and all the other streaming services.
mm.
It should be out in a couple of weeks, but it's really exciting to me, and I'm going to record some songs. And like, oh, of course, I should be out there and in the
Yeah,
sharing my work in the music realm as well. And I'm looking forward to that.
yeah,
So yeah, yeah, and I'll be recording my audiobook of that first book as well in the coming weeks as well, so that
mm,
the audiobook will be out there in my voice. So yeah,
yeah.
little projects like this, there are different things I'm working on.
I
Yeah.
feel like as like a human that has been like mentored by you to like host these spaces. Yeah, I really feel like encouraging you to publish the leadership, like the Turquoise Evolution New Paradigm Leadership book, but also to like yeah, keep on with this like training of like younger people and like these mentorships and yeah, maybe some sort of like combination of like a partly online course like a study group reading like the books together online and then coming together and having these like field of awakening immersions and then a continuated mentorship like yeah I just feel like
Mm.
celebrating you as a as a person, and thanking you for like the knowledge that I'm like very gratefully like receiving from you, and yeah, thanking you for coming on the podcast as well and celebrating you. Yeah.
Well, thank you for so much. I feel honored, and I don't feel too old, but more timeless perhaps. But yeah, thank you for the encouragement and support as well. I appreciate that, and yeah, figuring out the best way to do that, and it is also part of what I'm looking at, and I'm looking at some online courses also that can, of course, because I'm in Thailand right now, and we're all around the world, so creating some online formats to be able to learn and share through video and video meetings like this, and um, seems like a good step to do. So yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. I think that.
Yeah. I'll if that's okay with you, I'll put like some way of contacting you in the show notes, or some way
Yeah,
of like
sure.
viewing your
I,
work,
I
and then
I can just give you my link tree because everything I have is under there.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'll put it in the
Let's
show notes. And
the link tree. Yeah.
if people are interested to get in touch with you or work with you or be mentored by you or have something to say or something to talk about, then they can reach out for you there. And yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. Well, it's been fun chatting with you today, and
Mm.
happy. It's so fun to also yeah, geek out in a way on these things because I think the world could use more um, perspectives like this.
Mm. Yeah. All right, Bansi.
All right. Cheers.